the difference between sounding professional and sounding like yourself online? That is the big personal branding dilemma, and let's figure out a way to answer that. If you're tired of the old cookie-cutter marketing advice and want to take your personal brand to the next level with bold, actionable strategies that truly reflect you, you're in the right place. Let's untangle your marketing mayhem with Zoe, the video confidence coach, on the Unboring Your Brand podcast. Unboring Your Brand was recorded on Wadawurrung land. Ever worry if you're not using the words like synergy or touch base in every sentence that you won't sound professional / corporate? But There's a big difference between sounding professional and being a robot. And in this time of AI and people losing their humanity to this big gobbling machine, you need to make sure that you can stand out as you when growing your personal brand. So let's demystify a couple of things before we carry on with today's episode. Things I want to demystify first is there is no correlation between sounding professional and speaking corporate, even though for most of us in our lives, professional settings have been corporate settings. If you are someone who started off in a corporate career and then moved into running a small business, or maybe you are currently in the corporate sector and doing your best to grow your personal brand at the same time, I say hello, welcome everyone to the Unboring Your Brand podcast. And especially for even people who have not been in corporate and who are taking on this branding journey to grow their personal brand, there is a very big mental correlation between being professional, which is very stiff, but it also means that they are clear, respectful, and not full of typos. And in the way that you speak, it can feel very confusing when trying to make sure that you present yourself out into the world and that you are seen as the expert and the industry leader that you are, because that's what you're trying to be, right? But looking back on it, if you're not using big words, you might just not be using the right ones. So for you and for your ongoing journey in growing your personal brand, especially when you are using your voice or you're using your face in any of the work that you're doing, I implore you to not lean into the trope that you need to sound like a LinkedIn exploded all over your face. That may be a bit too sexual for this time of the morning, but I want you to try and keep it human. And in those moments that if you feel like your natural speaking voice, speaking tone, or just the way that you present yourself is not professional enough, I implore you to think about, are you just trying to emulate someone that you've seen or that you recognize because they've been successful and they've been successful in my industry because of the way that they speak? Not necessarily. They are successful because they action what they say. They are consistent, probably most likely, or they do their best to be consistent. And they are probably someone who has those network connection ties to be able to grow that personal brand of who you're aspiring to be like. Not necessarily just by the way that they speak. And it could also be the complete opposite, that the way that they speak is very human, is very relaxed, is very tone, or in Australia's case, very ochre, very relaxed in tone. And I sometimes get that from people who are overseas. Hello, for everyone who is not in Australia. I usually get a little bit of that because I speak very plainly, but I also sometimes, depending on how heavy I've been working that week, do have a tendency of leaning a bit more into marketing tones and using a lot of jargon that does not automatically connect with the people that I want to connect, which is you. And when you are doing the same, you are trying to be yourself while also being relatable. And they want to connect to you. And as humans, we can tell when someone is lying to us, when the patterns aren't working, it isn't clicking. And when you are trying to be professional, especially if that's not your normal state of being, well, not professional, I'd say, when you're trying to speak corporate is what I meant to say. When you're speaking corporate, You are not you. You are fitting into the mold of the box of what your career demands. But when you're growing your personal brand, it takes a lot of effort. And if you are not naturally someone who hones into that corporate speak, that is going to be a lot of time and energy that you are going to have to drill down into your psyche before you can start pushing that out into the real world. And that impedes your ability to grow and to help people. When it comes to your, not just your tone of voice or your quirks or the weird little phrases that you do, they are ultimately the secret sauce, because you are trying to connect with the people that you're speaking with, be them in person, be them virtually, be them via text, be them via audio, or be them via video, however you are reaching them. If someone who knows you or has met you in person, be this in a professional setting, because of course we're talking about personal brands here, in a business setting, if they met you in person, but then your tone of voice does not match your emails or your captions, they might just go, ooh, something's wrong here. I'm going to back away a little bit. I don't like the trust. I don't like the mismatch. And that is in marketing 101. If the tone of the way that you present yourself and the way that you write about yourself are not the same thing, people get a bit weird. People get a bit concerned, and you can lose that trust. Trust is the hardest thing to grow, capture, and maintain when it comes to marketing a brand, especially a personal brand. Not to mention any PR crises, but I'm not Molly McPherson. We're not going to get into that today. In those events, I want you to bring yourself back down to earth and take time to actually think about how you want to present yourself to the world. And if you've been presenting yourself in a certain way, being able to step back and realize that, is that something that you can maintain? Is that something that you can keep going and keep doing, mind you? Or is it time to pivot and try and make things work for you? I know that very early on in my career, I was doing my best to use all the jargon, use all the things, but also like making sure that I explained myself for people who maybe didn't know what those jargons were. Things took a lot longer. I was very detailed oriented. Unfortunately, I still am, but it resulted in me overworking myself. It resulted in me burning myself out and ultimately not really getting anywhere. But since then, I have started a new business, the Video Confidence Coach, and I've taken this time to really make my brand work for me. The way that I speak to you now is the way that I speak to my family and friends, with less marketing jargon, and I have learnt to probably not overload them with my marketing stuff and my personal branding stuff, because they're like, Zoe, shut up, we're not interested in that. So in those moments, I've learned to calm down. Or pull back in that respect. And that's probably the same for you. That when you are growing this personal brand in the field of study that you want to become an expert in, it's going to take over your life. And if it's going to take over your life, might as well make it easy for you wherever you can, via resources expenditure, via time, via energy, whatever it needs to be done to make things easier for you, do that. And in turn, if that means that you are you on the camera, if that's you when you're recording a podcast, if that's you when you're writing an article or a blog, or if you are trying to, whichever way that you are trying to communicate to your audience. Because again, that's what marketing is, baby. That's what personal branding is, baby. It is communicating to your audience. So in turn, making sure that you amplify the version of you that you want out there is better than just faking it with corporate slop. And ultimately being generic at the end of the day. No one likes generic. No one cares about generic. Because they're not willing to pay you the big bucks if you're generic. I see where we're coming here. I see where we like it. Like, glad you're along with me on this journey. You don't have to be exactly how you are in person. And I know that may seem a bit contradictory. Stay with me. It may seem a bit contradictory to what I just said. What I mean is, if you are someone who enjoys going down to the pub and having a drink with your mates, and the way that you talk to them is probably not how you're going to talk to your audience online, or how that is fine. That is fine. But when you are speaking to an audience, when you're speaking to them on a stage or online, or however you are communicating with them, it should ultimately feel like you. Think of it as like turning up the volume a little It's still your voice. It's just clearer and more purposeful. You have a direct line of communication to them, and you are a lot clearer with what your ultimate direction is. You're still you. You still got your accent. You still got the words that you use. You still got your little flubs, your ums, your ahs. For me at the moment, it's but, which is not helpful because that puts an end to the sentence when I'm trying to carry on the sentence, Zoe. And, so yeah, I caught myself there. No one is hiring a walking thesaurus, unless that is your job. If that is your job, congratulations, reach out to me, I'd love to hear from you. No one is hiring a walking thesaurus. They're hiring someone who ultimately gets it, who sees the problem, sees the solution, and can marry the two, no matter what industry you're in. You can be someone who is great at identifying problems, but if you can't identify solutions, not necessarily quickly, but just solutions in general, people are going to switch off because growing a personal brand is about meeting them where they are and providing them that next step to where they want to be. I hopefully am reaching out to people who are, running either successful businesses or people who are working great in corporate and they want to be able to branch out. They want to be able to market themselves better. Those are the people that I work with. Why? Because hopefully they like my vibe. Hopefully. And we can work together over a couple of months. We can work together over a couple of weeks. However, whichever service, whichever product you like the sound of, we can achieve that via working together. And for you, in your instance, it's about finding balance and asking yourself, would I say this out loud to a real human? And if the answer is no, then you should rework it. You're doing your best because you are combating AI. You are combating something that is not real, that is amalgamation of hallucinations and ultimately something that is a robot that is not built for the human world is going to try. And yes, there are going to be people who go the cheapest route. But as humans, we can see things. We can go, I can tell that's a bit off. I can tell that's a bit weird. And when growing your personal brand, it's not about dumbing things down for people. It's not about becoming that robot or becoming that professional glazed ham. I don't know, went there a bit weird for a bit, but you're trying to grow your personal brand, which is a reflection of you. It's a more professional reflection of you, not a corporate reflection of you, just a more professional reflection of you. Like I said, turning you up a little bit in volume so you're clearer and you're more focused with what you have to say. And in turn, you're not trying to dumb things down. You're trying to make sure that your message doesn't get lost in the fluff, doesn't get lost in the AI slop, or in any of the ways that you are trying to reach your communication to the people that you're trying to reach. You're trying to stand out. And humans like to watch other humans. We've built social media empires on that stuff. We have built media conglomerates on humans liking to watch other humans. You can sound smart, sure, but you ultimately need to sound like you. Quirks and all, and especially in this episode, that is what has been happening. Thank you everyone for your patience during this episode. I've done my best to try and build up my energy. At the moment, it is absolutely freezing here in the studio today, so I apologize if I've just kind of lulled up and down a little bit like you're on rough seas in the middle of the ocean. I've been doing my best to keep up the energy while also not freezing my tootsie self. So, a wrap up of everything we just discussed today. Professional does not equal corporate. Professional is a tone of voice. It is not a personality transplant. So in those events that you need to focus and you're trying to impress people, just turn up the volume of how you are in real life. People connect with people, and they connect with solutions to their problems, which hopefully you are providing with your personal brand. Your voice builds trust way faster than any sprinkling of AI or buzzword ever will. Showing up online, which usually is my area of expertise, by the way, but showing up wherever you happen to market yourself, like you're chatting with a smart mate at a coffee shop, is just about the sweet spot. People aren't dumb. People are just stressed. Thank you for joining me for the Unboring Your Brand podcast. Make sure you rate us 5 stars on Apple Podcasts and Spotify Podcasts. Thank you, and I look forward to seeing you next week on the podcast that you are listening to right now. I need to figure out an ending for this. Thank you for listening or watching Unboring Your Brand. You can find detailed show notes with tools, offers, and episode transcriptions. Just click the first link in the description or go to vcc.training/podcast. Get involved and ask me anything about personal branding, video strategy, or just a friendly small business chat via my email, g'day@vcc.training. That is gday@vcc.training. The Video Confidence Coach would like to acknowledge and pay my respects to the Wadawurrung people of the Kulin Nation, the traditional custodians of the land on which I record my podcast. I pay my respects to their elders past and present. I stand with the traditional custodians of these lands in working towards a more equal future. Always was, always will be Aboriginal land. Look forward to me chatting at you next week, superstars.